Hello and welcome to #Africa, where we bring you the latest from across the continent. I'm Ropiwa Madzena. Let's kick off with some of the top stories this week. Flights in Sudan are cancelled following a general strike that started on Tuesday. Expected to last 2 days, it's the latest move by protest leaders to put pressure on the ruling military council. And it comes after talks between the two parties collapsed. The Declaration of Freedom and Change Forces says the Transitional Military Council demanded a more than two-thirds majority on a sovereign council that would lead the country after the ousting of President Omar al-Bashir last month. The TMC says it's ready to hand over power swiftly, but it does add that the opposition isn't serious about sharing power. President Peter Mutharika has won Malawi's election with 38.57% of the votes. He narrowly secured another 5-year term after delays over suspected tampering. Voters in the southern African nation cast ballots for a president and parliament last Tuesday. It was a race between Mutharika and two former allies, Lazarus Chakwera and Deputy President Saulos Chalima. On Saturday, a court granted the opposition an injunction. This was after the Electoral Commission received 147 cases of irregularities. They included results sheets with sections blotted out or altered with correction fluid. Hundreds of people are homeless in Guinea as authorities have begun tearing down houses in a landfill in Conakry. Although the government issued a 3-month eviction notice, residents say they were not prepared for the demolitions. Back in 2017, 8 people died and several others were wounded when a portion of the site collapsed on houses after torrential rains. The government says it'll compensate each affected family with an amount equal to 30,000 rand, a figure many say will not meet their needs. A Ghanaian venture capitalist is launching an educational platform seeking to connect 10,000 African entrepreneurs with investors. The initiative will assist new and established education technology companies seeking investment. To discuss this further, we're joined all the way from Spain by founder and CEO of Investor Magnet, Sean Drake. Sean, many thanks for your time. Tell us a little bit more about this project.
Thank you for having me. So it's really about a platform, a home for education technology startups or much more developed companies to be able to attract the financial and strategic investors they need to take their projects and their ideas to the next level. We're focused on education because we think there is an education crisis on the continent and in fact globally. And we believe that we have a unique opportunity on the continent. And I say unique because of 2 reasons. One, we as a continent has the largest amount of youth that have no access to any form of education. But on the other side, we have the biggest opportunity of our lifetime when it comes to education. And as said by the World Bank, we receive the highest rate of return globally when it comes to investing in education. So that's why we're starting on the continent. That's why we're focusing on it.
And that's a very interesting one. But beyond education, surely there are other ventures across the continent that are in need of the kind of funding that you're offering. Is there an opportunity to expand after some time into other entrepreneurial ventures?
Absolutely. The idea to start with education was to provide a focus point, provide a starting point, but a strategic starting point which we could easily get into other sectors like healthcare, like agriculture, like financial services, which are all within, which all require some form of education. So we strategically picked education because we think it's the sector that really permeates across every single sector. So definitely the idea is to expand to other sectors, but fundamentally we need to examine and solve the issues and the blockages within our education system to truly enable to be able to tap to the other sectors effectively.
Let's Let's talk about the screening process that will be used to supply entrepreneurs with the funding. How exactly will you go about choosing them?
Good question. We are looking, first of all, the ideal criteria is an idea we get asked quite a lot. And I think that historically, the criteria for venture capitalism, investment criteria, has been some sort of tick boxing exercise. For us, it's simply a guide. And the criteria has to be, has to work around the idea, has to work around the project. And ultimately, broadly speaking, what we are looking for is what we call game-changing ideas. Ideas within education that have the potential to change the game of education, to change the way we learn, the way we educate, the way we draw out and feed out talent from our youth, whether it's primary education, secondary education, tertiary education, higher education, or in fact, vocational training. So that is the entire focus. And the detail within that is shaped by this idea we call game changing.
I mean, something that's going to be very important here is the use of technology in growing these ventures in the tech education space. But what would you say is the level of skills development when it comes to dealing with technological advancements on the African continent?
Well, I think there is obviously a gap. However, if you look at organizations like Andela and what they're doing across the continent, there is certainly no shortage of talent, raw talent across the continent. I think the skills gap, as far as information technology goes, may well be in harnessing the specifics to allow us to be able to use certain technology, but not just be a user and consumer of technology, but in fact being a producer of technology. I think that's very, very important, that we reimagine technology that would serve the rest of the world that currently does not exist. So I think there's going to be a skill gap, and it's our job to continue to ensure that there's a gap so that we are growing. So I don't think that is an issue. The issue is really to be able to harness the talent, the raw talent we have in the right way, and to be a producer of technology as opposed to just being a consumer of it.
How important are partnerships in this particular project? Tell us about some of the partners that you may have, as well as some that are coming up in the future, perhaps even with government institutions.
Yeah, partnership is key. One of the promises of the platform is trusted and relevant access to markets, and the market participants in education, across from public sectors as well as private sector. I think on the continent we have 20% of education being provided by the private sector, so quite a huge amount compared globally. However, public sector still contributes to 80-70% of education. So that partnership is crucial. We are in conversation with some governments across the continent, mainly in East, West, and South. And on the West, we're looking at Ghana and Nigeria. In the East, we're looking at Nairobi and Uganda. The South of South Africa is our focus. So to be able to really engage governments together is key, but mainly focused on entrepreneurs and investors at this particular point in time to ensure that we're able to break through I would say, some of the problems that government has failed to solve.
Sean, thank you very much for your time. I've been speaking there to the founder and CEO of Investor Magnet, Sean Drake. When we return, Africa Month is drawing to an end, but festivities are still carrying on. Stay with #Africa.